So, Bobby, why do you think it is that most people struggle? Like, are they following the right programs the wrong way, or are they just following the wrong programs altogether?
So I think the answer to that is honestly both.
Okay.
Right? There's two truths that can be valid at the same time, that I don't think your program matters as much as you think it does, compared to consistency, showing up, eating right, sleeping right, doing the right thing. Like, I think as a society, we always blame the program for our lack of fitness gains, but oftentimes it's all these underlying things. The program doesn't matter. Now, on the other side of the coin, I think there are a significant amount of people that are putting a good amount of effort in, but they're spinning their wheels because their program's no good. They're program jumpers, if you will, that they constantly switch between, and they don't have a path. So I think genuinely I want to address both of those things, if that's fair.
Yeah.
So number one, is a blanket rule. The reason your training program sucks, the reason it's not working, the reason you're not seeing progress is because simply you don't show up enough.
Imagine what this reminds me of. This is like if all your relationships are in the dumps, if all your friends are jerks and everything around you is falling apart, like what is the common denominator in all of those relationships, right?
The common link in this chain of dysfunction is you, my friend. Is one of my favorite sayings. But I use this saying, and it's K minus A equals 0. You've heard me say this before. Knowledge minus action means nothing. So you can have the best program in the world. You can have the thing that's handed down to you by a group of Russian sports scientists. You can have Michael Phelps' program he used to win 37 Olympic gold medals or whatever it was. It might only be 32. But if you're not willing to do the work, just because you have the program on paper, you're not going to magically get a result. And I think this is what a lot of people are guilty of. They buy a program on the internet. They think because they bought the program, all of a sudden they're going to see a result, but they're not putting in the requisite effort. There was a study in 2007 or 2009 by a guy named Steven Seiler. He did a research study about what high-level athletes put into their craft hourly a year. Swimmers, 1,300 hours a year. Rowers, 1,100 hours a year. Nordic skiers, 900 hours a year. Runners were 700 hours a year. So if I take my calculator and I look at what 700 hours a year is, you're looking at 14 hours a week, Joe.
Yeah.
That's like the amount of time, the minimum amount of time of an elite athlete on this chart puts into their craft. We're smack dab in football season. How much time do you think people put a week into football season? Like if you're a player on the Green Bay Packers, you're Micah Parsons. How much time does that man put in a week between film?
I mean, it's a full-time job, right?
Right. People have the impression that he just shows up on Sunday and does his thing, and that's not the case. That's a full-time job. And I'm not saying working out has to be your full-time job. My point is, if you're not willing to show up every day, if you're not consistent, if you're missing days on that program, it's not going to work. Like if you have a program, you have to follow it. So as a whole, that is the biggest issue that I see is consistency. And I don't care what program you have. If you're not consistent, it's not going to work. We have to solve that problem first. And you also...
the program doesn't do itself, right? Like there's a human being that has to show up and actually do the work. And it doesn't matter if you have the top secret Russian training protocols or if you just have like a very entry-level, beginner-friendly workout. They'll get about the same result if you don't show up for either.
Correct. And I would argue this. If you had the best program in the world and showed up half-time, or you had a minimal program but showed up every day, I would argue that might work better. There's actually a saying from the running community, if you don't run more than 70 miles a week, you don't deserve a program.
Yeah.
That's insane for a lot of people. Like, what do you mean
Yeah.
I got to run 70 miles? And the theory is that if you're running under 70 miles a week, your volume is so low that it doesn't matter what you do. Run easy, run hard. It's no difference. Like, you're not even entry level to being
Yeah,
a
there's
competitive
like
runner.
a skill development to working out, right? Like I try to take something that's high skill, like just say playing the violin. You want to play some really advanced, concerto or something. Like there's a lot of practice that goes into just the very, very basics of it. Like you
Yep.
can't just pick up a guitar and start wailing like Yngwie Malmsteen and just be like shredding away like crazy the first time you ever picked it up. Like you have to learn how to hold the guitar. You got to learn how to pick. You got to learn alternate picking, sweep picking, like all these tricks that take a long time to learn, to develop a lot of discipline. And then you can start learning more advanced stuff. And there's a skill to working out as far as managing your life in such a way that you do show up for the workouts and that you are getting adequate warm-ups, and that when you are working on a particular exercise like a bench press or a bicep curl, that you're doing it sufficiently well enough to get an effect. And you can't just pick up the old Russian manual and start doing what you think they're talking about until you've learned how those exercises go together, how you have to manage everything to make sure that it is an effective program in the first place. And so, of course, it is, I would say, easier to get that base level program and work on consistency than it is to have something that's just going to be absolutely impossible for you to follow with movements you're not even capable of and try to stick to that. Like if you and I put together a workout program that said you had to do a 600-pound deadlift and 10 handstand push-ups every day, how hard is it to stick to if you can't do the deadlift and you can't do handstand push-ups?
Yeah, you're not doing the program.
You ain't going to do it.
But it's funny. I'm glad you brought up the guitar thing because it's the final point before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned somebody. I have no idea who they are, but I'm sure they're
A famous shredder. That's all you need to know.
Well, let's go with a person that everybody knows, Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's the most technical guitar player in the world. I'm not saying he's the best of all time, but he's regarded as one of the greats.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, and Joe, you take guitar lessons.
Yeah.
Here's my question to you, honestly. Do you think Eddie Van Halen was a great guitarist because he had some special training program he followed, because his guitar teacher had some magic teaching method, because he had some secret way of reading the music? Or,
well, I can tell you exactly what it was.
Well, let me finish.
Fish oil, creatine.
There, he got some supplements. But or
how about this? How about this? If you went to Eddie Van Halen's house and knocked on the door, there was a better than not chance that he would answer the door with a guitar in his hand.
You know the story. There's stories that his parents would tell that he would literally spend 8 hours a day in his bedroom and he would play guitar till his fingers bled. So my question is like, did that do it, or was the fact he had a magic training program, right? Yeah. Michael Phelps, was he good at swimming because he had some magical thing, or was it because he swam 30 hours a week every week for 10 years straight? Again, it becomes pretty evident. And again, for the Mike Menser people out there, I'm not telling you have to work out every single day for hours and hours and hours, but just at a baseline, the best you're willing to do is show up once or twice a week. You're probably not going to get the most out of that program. So let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
Now, the second problem I see, Joe, is you are consistent, but your program isn't efficient enough, or it's not, what's the word? You're not realizing gains from it. You're not actually fulfilling your goals. And one of the biggest...
That's interesting because it puts in my mind the thought that you have to know what fitness means if you're going to train to be fit, because fitness for Michael Phelps is a very different meaning than fitness for Karen from accounting, right? Like you have to have a program that's going to get you from where you are to where it is you want to be. And if you haven't identified where you want to be, how can you be on the right program?
So that's the next point. Your goals are inconsistent with the program that you're following. You want to be better at high rocks, but you're following a program meant for CrossFitters. You want to be better at Spartan racing, but you're unwilling to run. And in Spartan race, there's a lot of running. You want to be a better powerlifter, but you love doing cardio on the side. You want to be an elite level runner, but all you want to do is lift weights and bulk. Like, I see so many people that I ask them, what's your goal? And they tell me their goal. And then I look at their program and I'm like, well, your program doesn't reflect this at all.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have a program that reflects your goals. And a lot of people, what they do, they program hop. They follow people on the internet that don't know what they're talking about. They make stuff up randomly and they follow this program. And then they wonder a year down the road why they're not getting stronger, putting on muscle. Let me give you an example, Joe, and you can actually like really talk about this because you ran a CrossFit gym. If you read A.S. Prilipin stuff, you read, Mel Siff's Super Training. For those of you that don't know, two of like the most reputable, knowledgeable sports scientists in the world, they will tell you that to truly get strong, I mean really strong, you have to lift 80 to 100% of your 1 rep max. Your sets have to be less than 4 reps per set. And you're probably only doing between maybe 5 if you're at 90% of your 1 rep max and 20 if you're at 80% of your 1 rep max reps per day for your big lifts. That's what it takes to actually get strong. On the other hand, you want to do hypertrophy stuff, 4 sets of 15 at 60% 1 rep max. There's a bunch of different variations, but there's a specific rep total and weight that you want to hit. So then what happens is you take it back to what, Joe, 2012 to CrossFit Twin Cities when you were running a CrossFit gym. And you have a guy and all he's doing is circuit training. And he's saying the circuit training is making me strong. But he only has a 365-pound deadlift. And then he's complaining how he's not getting stronger and it's completely plateaued. Well, it's because the circuit training is not making you strong. I get that you think because you have a 365 deadlift that you think you're strong. But if you want to run that deadlift up to 600, you need to do a very specific thing. And showing up to Joe Cebula's barbell class every Monday and Wednesday to do CrossFit stuff, I don't think that's making you strong, Joe.
Well, to people's credit, and I think especially in the CrossFit community, like when people hit these plateaus, I feel like they were legitimate plateaus where it was like doing what you're doing, that's about as strong as you're going to get. And the only way that we're going to get you stronger is to put you on a dedicated program. And I believe that the best CrossFit competitors figured that out early on. So you've got like your old school, Rich Froning, Annie Thorsdottir, they did a periodized training program where it's like, okay, for 6 months, I am just going to focus on getting stronger, specifically in the Olympic lifts, because that's such a part of CrossFit. And then as they got closer to competition, they would increase the amount of conditioning that they were doing. And in the weeks leading up to like the CrossFit Open and to regionals and all that stuff, they were just hammering out CrossFit workouts so that they could take all that strength they built the first half or 3/4 of a year and bring it to those workouts.
And I'm really glad you brought that up. And it's going to actually bleed into our next point, because I believe that there's a major difference between competitive CrossFit and showing up to randomized workouts Monday through Friday, right? Like, you're right. Those competitors were on a program that was, I'm getting stronger. I'm increasing my VO2 max. I'm doing this. How the class works is you show up and you do whatever randomized thing that's on the class schedule, and that may or may not be getting you closer to your goal. Which now let's bleed into the next point, Joe. When you look at a lot of these high-level CrossFit athletes, they were doing long endurance work. Yeah. They were doing LSD-type cardio. They were doing really heavy lifting. They were doing some mid-range lifting that was like a bridge between the two. They didn't have holes in your program. So if the first issue is consistency, and the second issue is your program's not consistent with your goals, the third issue is you're skipping the stuff or skipping the parts of that program that you really ought to be doing because you don't like it or you've convinced yourself that it's not that effective. And I would say there's the big four, Joe. Apart from being an elite powerlifter or an elite endurance athlete, Tour de France type stuff, Every single person on this planet needs 4 areas of fitness: heavy lifting, lighter lifting with a form or structural emphasis, high grade intense cardio, intervals, and then low, slow, distant, non-impact
the
based
fun
cardio.
stuff, right?
Yeah, with walking on a treadmill for 30 minutes. If you have those 4 things, you're going to see a lot of progress and have a really well-rounded program. But if you're the guy...
There's a concept you're touching on here I call the Happy Gilmore problem.
Okay.
Happy Gilmore was great at teeing off, but he sucked at putting. So what did he have to put his work into? Teeing off more? That wasn't going to improve. He had to work on his short game. You got to work on putting. And was he happy about it? Did he enjoy it? No, not at all. But if he could become from a absolute trash putter to even a mediocre putter, he was going to crush people because he had those other strengths. So you have to address the holes in your game. You said it right.
And I get annoyed with these people who are like, I can't lift weights, I'm going to bulk too much. I can't run, it's going to ruin my gains. I can't. No, listen, there's a lot of bodybuilders. Here's the irony, Joe. I'm not doing cardio. It's going to ruin my gains.
What gains?
I'm doing what? Yes. But I have known a lot of bodybuilders, Joe, and you know what they do to stay lean? Every single morning on an empty stomach, an hour of cardio. Walking on a treadmill, on an elliptical, on a bike, usually with a little container of sweet potatoes and chicken breast. Well, bodybuilders do a lot more cardio than you think. What do you think they do when they're cutting? They're doing a massive amount of cardio, but you're at home with your 20-pound gut, your chest that looks like an inverted spoon, and you're telling me that you can't do cardio because it's going to ruin your gains. You have holes in your program. So again, consistency, your program's got to be in line with your goals. And then 3, you can't cherry pick the program that delivers to you what you really want to do, or you can't skip the hard stuff.
You can't put those obstacles up before you've even gotten there. It's cross that bridge when you get to it. If you're lifting weights and you're like, man, I'm starting to get too bulky, then we can adjust the program. But get to that point first.
You got to get to that point
I'm
first.
worried that I'm going to overtrain. Well, let's wait until we see that happen first, and then we can address it as it occurs. Don't let it be the reason you don't try.
That's exactly it, Joe. So there you go. Your program sucked. Now you're going to follow this advice. It's not going to suck because you're going to show up. Your goals are going to be consistent with your actions. You're not going to skip the hard stuff, and you are going to be good to go. How's that?
Yeah. Quit sucking, people. Let's go.
All right. Thank you for coming by the Maximus Podcast. Do me a favor. Subscribe. Notifications on. Share this with your buddy who has a terrible training program and never shows up to the gym. Give them the help they need. We'll see you next episode.